From across time and space and throughout the multiverse, listen as two generations of comic book readers come together to discuss a single character or event that shaped pop culture as we know it. Let Your Geek Sideshow presents Then and Now with Susan and Kitty. Hey everyone, I'm Susan.
And I'm Kitty.
And can we really do a proper retrospective on things that basically created the Marvel Universe?
I don't know. It's kind of like then and now
and always.
Forever, and always, yeah.
Admit it, at some point or another, you've wanted to wield one of these infinite cosmic power stones or gems, depending on when you came into knowledge about these guys. So we have time, space, power, reality, mind, and soul, and they all come into play in this new episode. So prepare yourselves. Let's see if we can assemble a full gauntlet by the end of this. So this is the Infinity Stones or gems, then and now. I have to keep saying that.
Then, now, and always.
Then, now, and always. Always.
So this is the first one that we've done that's not really a character.
It's not really a character.
This is
I could argue that they are their own characters.
Absolutely. But this is like a core building block of the Marvel Universe.
It's the cosmics. Like it's like if we did like the Titans or something like in Greek mythology, there's like the Kronos and the Titans, like they came before the gods. Like that's what we're doing here.
Yeah. This is everything that came before the Marvel Universe.
Yes, this is what all the power in the Marvel Universe stems from. And I resent that most of these say stones because they are gems. They were gems
when
they showed up.
Stones.
And that's the then and now.
That's the then and now.
It's like it is actually a huge talking point between a lot of geeks where you hear people say stones versus gems. And personally, it's all pretty jewelry to me, isn't it? Right? Infinite power in the form of a just golden glove that holds it all. Yeah. So for my side on the then, I'm basically going to be talking about what I consider like the trilogy, which is Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, and Infinity Crusade that happened in 91, 92, 93, respectively.
And then on the now side of things, and Susan will help me out with this, Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's where it's all headed to right now.
Right.
Once they got that first Avengers film off the ground, like that was when it was like, hey, we might have enough traction.
But they set up the building blocks long before that.
They did. But that kind of, with the inclusion of Thanos in the end credits,
yes,
that was like, hey, we're gonna hit the ground running on this. And to lead up to the film, Marvel Comics is putting out some new stuff that we will cover, Infinity Countdown, and their recently announced Infinity Wars.
That's
plural.
Cool.
Yeah.
So they go from Secret War to Secret Wars, and now Infinity War and Infinity Wars.
Yeah, but Civil War and Civil War 2 doesn't
Come on, guys.
quite fit the pattern.
You missed your pattern opportunity for this.
But, yeah. With Infinity Stones, Infinity Gems, there is infinite storytelling potential for these objects.
And even if you take them one at a time, you're talking about the power of all time, the power of all space, all reality. Like that's just to start. Where do you start with that? Where do you go from all of time? Go.
Well, where does Marvel start with that?
It's basically starts with the inception of the universe. They have all of their, now I'm totally blanking on their names, but like the Living Tribunal and Ego.
The Elders of the Universe?
The Elders of the Universe. And I was like, I know that
the Gardener, the Runner.
Yeah, and I was like, if
champion.
I keep naming them, I know that you'll eventually tell me what they're called.
Yes.
But these guys come into play like very rarely in this, except that they do make appearances in the Infinity Gauntlet series, but the Infinity Gauntlet series starts with a guy named Thanos. And
that guy?
His willingness to impress Mistress Death. So really, I think that all of this comes down to that right there. It's Thanos. So when you have a villain who's all powerful, who contains all of the power in the universe, what do you do with him?
Well, several accounts say that you destroy half the universe and then you rebuild.
Yes, or you undo it by utilizing the very thing that he has weaponized. But that's where, for me, because I'm going to, truth be told, I think that this is actually a very confusing topic because there are 6 gems. There are 6 different ways to like explain all of this. The gems have done things like evolved and switched colors. They have completely different powers. And I find it confusing, and it was something that always confused me as a comic book reader when I actually didn't read Infinity Gauntlet back in the 90s, mostly because I think I was too young. I would have only been a little, like I wouldn't have been in junior high yet.
Too young to comprehend the cosmic powers at play.
Yeah, too young to comprehend, oh, Thanos just snapped and killed half of reality, of all things that live. So for me, it was something that I had to revisit to understand different elements of the Marvel Universe that I really loved. Like I loved Doctor Strange as a character, and he plays such a huge part in the Infinity Gauntlet series, including like kind of keeping Adam Warlock in check.
Because the most perfect being in the universe.
I always say that because he's the most perfect being in the universe. But he still has to answer to somebody. And, you know, Doctor Strange in his infinite arrogance decided that would be him. So,
will they make it a quadrilogy with infinity arrogance?
Possibly. I mean, I hope so. But, you know, spoiler alert, in the end, Adam Warlock is able to get the gauntlet from Thanos at the end of Infinity Gauntlet. And he has to separate the stones. And it's actually Doctor Strange who encourages Adam Warlock to do it because he asks him honestly if he thinks he deserves all this power or if he can wield it and without being corrupt. So that's something that, being Adam Warlock and the most perfect being in the universe, you have to be self-aware enough to understand, no, I can't. And that's what happens in Infinity War. Like if you look at these stories as a trilogy, you wind up having like the dramatic first
act.
The first act. And then the second one is really like the blockbuster blowout type act where nothing ends happily and everything is terrible by the end. And different people need to have the different stones because they keep trying to keep all the stones together and they're realizing that's not working. You can't keep all the stones together. So then the resolution happens in the Crusade. So that's kind of what I was looking at coming from that side of things, where I always thought of it as like the part of the Marvel Universe that was bigger than Earth, than what we have right now. And so I'm super looking forward to the Marvel Cinematic Universe further exploring that. Like, we always talk about that moment in Avengers where you first see Thanos.
Yes.
And I legit punched the person that I was seeing the movie with because I couldn't believe that they were going to go out there.
See, when I saw that movie, the people that I was with were like, oh, it's that guy. And I was like, who is that guy? Because the cinematic universe was kind of my first exposure to these. So I was like, who is that guy? And then they all pulled out their phones quickly to go on Wikipedia and go, who is that purple guy at the end of the Avengers?
Oh my God. I hate all the people you saw that movie with because I punched the person I was with and I was like, I said a curse word and then was like, Thanos! And the person I was with was like, who is that? And I just was like, are you kidding me? That's the Mad Titan. That's Thanos. They're like, was it the Mad Titan or is it Thanos? And I was like, I'm leaving this theater.
Well, see, it's interesting that you said with the initial like Infinity Gems and you stayed a lot in the X-Men universe kind of when this was
completely was in the X-Men
happening
universe when this was happening.
I guess these aren't terribly, I mean, they're not terribly confusing to me. I don't think I have as deep of an understanding of all their powers. I'm just kind of like, yeah, I understand. But
I also think if you came in around when you came in, they were a lot more defined and a lot more, because like for a while, people could do this and this and this with them. And now
we've gotten to a point where Marvel actually has a flow chart explaining exactly what everything does.
So yeah, so if you want to jump onto Kitty's now list that she'll tell you at the end of the show, there will be an actual guideline for you. Whereas I was like, wait, which one's the purple one again?
and then the Marvel movies kind of betrayed everyone's expectations by flipping the colors and flipping the almost like the appearances. I mean, my favorite one in the films, which was sadly underutilized in its film, was the reality stone, or not even a stone, but the ether.
Yeah, because that was almost like a fog in the film.
Yeah, it was and just the viscous nature of it really kind of, for me, I was like, oh my God, that would be reality because it's so fluid and it shapes everything. But
and then with space, you had it opened up this like portal. And yeah, that is kind of how space is used in the comics as well, but you always see everything come back to that stone or that gem.
Mm-hmm. And no offense to Malekith in Thor the Dark World, but dude, if you can warp reality, think bigger than returning the world to darkness. That was the one that I always like I've seen the power of how other people want to use the stones in the films, like Ronan wants to wipe out Xandar and all this stuff. But oh my God, I think this is where it comes in, where everyone has that fantasy of like what they would do with one of these powers. Like, dude, think bigger. If you can warp all of reality, that's my favorite.
If you could warp all of reality, you would make it dark. Okay, dude.
Buy a nightlight and that's fixed.
Yeah, I'm just like, I have a flashlight, so your plan is foiled.
But it's been fascinating to watch how the Marvel movies have unraveled each of these, and the Dark World was kind of the first one with its end credit scene where people could start to see, or at least in from my perspective, people could start to see there are now pawns in play, and we have to wait to see which one comes up next in which film. And I mean, everyone's...
That's funny. So the Dark World was the first time you noticed that?
Well, I understood the Tesseract in the Avengers was a big deal, but I mean, Loki's scepter was still kind of concealed until Age of Ultron. Like, it didn't...
Interesting.
For me and my... Yeah,
no,
I'm
not. I'm just like, okay, that's cool. I love different perspectives on when people figure things out.
When the Asgardians take... And even before, while Jane is infected with the Aether, or... Can you be infected with an infinity gem? Whatever it was.
I think you kind of
possessed.
Possessed, or you become the guardian of.
Yeah. But when the Asgardians take it to the Collector, and then it's like, boom, Thor and Guardians of the Galaxy, like that.
Now connected.
And we've got Elders of the Universe now in play. It's like, that's for me when I first, and I was well reading comics by the time Dark World came out. But this was when I was like, there are pawns that Marvel is going to be moving, and for me it was fascinating and terrifying, and it's been cool to watch it unravel.
You know what it was for me? I don't know why, but it never occurred to me that these could be the stones until Cap told Nick Fury they should have left it in the water. And I don't know what it was about that line that completely gave it away for me, that I was like, oh my God. Like when he was like, we're looking for a source of renewable energy, I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. But that one line when Cap's walking away and he's like, you should have left it in the water, I was like, are those the gems?
Ooh.
I don't know what it was about that line, but that was my moment.
That's really cool. Yeah, because for me, I've with those films, especially the earlier ones for me, I was just kind of taking what was presented to me and going, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. So, I mean, I know everyone's like eagerly awaiting to see where the Soul Stone will show up, but we've seen all the other ones in play in the movies now.
So you mentioned the ether or the aether or whatever it's... The reality stone.
Yes.
The reality stone.
The reality, like goo.
Yeah. We're just going to call it the reality stone for clarity's sake.
Yeah.
Because this, like I said, this can get really confusing. So the reality stone was used... Interestingly, for me, it was the time stone, and the time stone is always used really interestingly in both the comics and the movie, because the time stone is always kind of used. We talk about Thanos and he destroys half the universe. Well, the time stone's how we go back and we reset it. And the way that Doctor Strange uses it in the MCU is also the same type of thing, where he's catching himself in a loop in order to save the world. But like, that's
in a place where time doesn't exist.
In a place where time doesn't exist. And in the same way that he, in Infinity Gauntlet, I don't know. I guess this is like a 20-year-old comic. It's okay to spoil things. So what Thanos does is he's constantly trying to give offerings to Mistress Death, right? So he loves her. He's offering things to her. She won't talk to him. She's only talking to him through liaisons. Sounds
like you do.
I was like, kind of sounds like high school, but whatever. And he winds up, because Nebula at this point has one of Thanos' ships and is claiming to be his granddaughter and wants to help him. And instead, Thanos holds her in a state of infinite pain. I keep using the word infinite, but he holds her in a stasis where she is always in pain on the edge of death. And he thinks this is going to be the most perfect offering to Lady Death.
Ooh.
Right? Because she's not dead, but she could be dead. So Thanos has already offered her.
Teasing in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
He's trying to lure her in. Right? That's what we do with the games we play, right? But in doing so, like, this allows Nebula a chance to also steal the gauntlet, which she does, and turns herself backwards in time to where she's not in this stasis anymore. So stasis and like where the gems are used also becomes almost important to the stories that they're told in. So
I think, and going back to the incident with Doctor Strange in the films, I think where we'd seen already the Space Stone, Power Stone, which you're gonna blow up a planet with that. Like, I don't know. It might sound like I'm thinking like, oh, the Marvel movies think too small, and that makes me sound like a megalomaniac.
Are you a daughter of Thanos?
But I thought that the appearance of the Time Stone and the fact that Doctor Strange could bring the concept of time to a realm where it didn't exist, and Dormammu's like, what is going on? Like, that's when I thought, like, okay, this one was the most powerful, I think, depiction of what we had seen so far. Between both time and soul, I think those are the two that, for me, they kind of elude me. Like, what would you use that for? But like,
well, the Soul Stone, I mean, we haven't seen it in the cinematic universe yet, so this one's, more difficult to talk about the now of it because we aren't entirely sure of the now.
And I don't even, like, it probably won't even appear.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't.
Let's not speculate.
Yeah.
I know that in the comics right now, Gamora is partially trapped inside of the Time Stone. The Soul Stone. And that was something for me is Adam Warlock has been trapped inside of the Soul Stone, and the Soul Stone can trap a soul in its entirety or partially.
And I think Hank Pym also has been trapped in it now.
Yes. And so what's interesting is also that there are several characters that can wield power over certain stones because of their abilities, which I find fascinating in terms of like, well, we haven't met Adam Warlock in the, well, I guess we kind of did. We saw him being created
right
by the Sovereign in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but we haven't actually met Adam Warlock yet. And I'm curious to see, is he going to be able to have power over the Soul Stone the way he does in the comics? Because if he does, that's partially what leads to Thanos' undoing. So the fact that Adam Warlock can hop in and out of the Soul Stone and trap other people in it with him and trap himself partially, but also not be entirely trapped in there as well, like, is that going to play any sort of part moving forward?
Right. And it's interesting seeing all the characters we've had now in the then comics and the now movies who've gotten their hands on it. The comics right now, we've got a whole new set of players with their hands on the stones. Like it's
because do the now feature the Illuminati at all, who each have a different stone?
I don't know if this right now, what they're doing in Infinity Countdown, I don't know if it's considered the Illuminati. I know that the Illuminati did play a part in Secret Wars.
Yes.
And a lot of the now stuff that I do talk about comes back to Secret Wars 2015 because the gauntlet was seen there. Black Panther actually had it.
Yeah.
And
he wound up being one of the keepers of one of the stones.
Yes, and Namor was also there, and they had to retrieve.
Bring Namor to the MCU.
So they had to retrieve the gauntlet to defeat Doom. And then the universes exploded once they defeated Doom. And the stones kind of disappeared for a little bit. And then they reformed. But what's most humorous for me is that they reformed in the same colors that they are in the films. So I think to make it a little bit of an easier transition for readers coming into it now. So all the colors of the stones, their forms aren't exactly the same, and the ways in which they appeared in Infinity Countdown are not the same as they are in the films, but they have changed the colors because that visual representation is really
and I think
important.
that because we talk in this podcast all the time of there has to be something that is the like through line. Otherwise, how do you continue to have a character which these are 6 characters, you know, if you really think about it. They have their own personalities. They have their own storylines. They have their own power. And so the through lines of the characters are the physical stones. Like having the physical attributes, regardless of the color, you need to have these physical gems or stones because you need that visual of putting them on. Because comics is a visual medium. You need to put that, so is film. You need to put them on the gauntlet. They have to be there. You need to see Doctor Strange open up the Eye of Agamotto and have the time stone be in there.
So it's really funny though, because the Power Stone right now, I don't know. Well, right now in Infinity Countdown, Ultron is the one who's actually trying to assemble all the stones to rewrite history. There was a story called The Rage of Ultron from a couple of years back that explains how he kind of got combined with Hank Pym's own persona, and so he's a man with an insecurity complex fueled by a robot's rage and hatred of humanity, and so he's now
that is terrible.
It is a winning combination, but
that sounds awful.
The Power Stone isn't so easily collected right now because it's the size of a mountain, and Drax is actually guarding it on an alien planet.
That's amazing.
And Captain Marvel had to go to a different reality to find the Reality Stone. It appeared in the Weird World series, and it actually turned into a dragon.
That's so fun.
Yeah, and that was really cool because the Weird World series was a short-lived Secret Wars, and then after, and all the characters in Weird World wanted this thing they called the Seed. It had a funny name for Weird World, but you didn't realize, and that was one of the first instances of the stones reappearing in the post-Secret Wars. So it turned into a dragon and flew off to a different reality.
So the comics are almost mirroring what they did in the MCU, where they're talking about like the Reality Stone is this thing that nobody can quite comprehend what it is, much like our own realities. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're trying to expand on our minds and stuff. Speaking of which, we haven't even touched on the Mind Stone at all.
And I am so curious. So Infinity Countdown at this point, at which I am talking to you, has only had 3 issues. It's been an Adam Warlock special, which explains he's Magus now.
Yes. I actually read that series, and it's a really great catch up on the history of Adam Warlock if you do not know who he is.
Perfect. And then there was Infinity Countdown Prime, which is technically the 0 issue, and then issue number 1. Number 2 comes out in mid-April, like a week before Infinity War hits screens. But the Mind Stone, this is where it's cool, where you can see like Thanos has had his hands on these stones or gems, I'm sorry, and Adam Warlock has had them. The Mind Stone currently rests in the hands of petty crook Turk Barrett, who people actually might know from the Daredevil series, from the Netflix, and he's in the comics, but he is a small-time crook who has the Mind Stone.
Is he aware that he has the Mind Stone?
I think he knows he's got something special. I don't know if he knows what exactly he has, but he's been using it to his advantage, and he's thinking too small, but he's been using it to cheat at cards and win money and kind of live a nice lifestyle. They call him Mr. Turk, and so
that's crazy.
It's really cool to see now characters from all over the cosmos of the Marvel Universe are scrambling to find these things, and one of them landed in the lap of a Hell's Kitchen criminal.
Yeah,
which is I think that's really cool.
The Mind Stone is one of those also that a character in the Marvel Universe has had a little bit of influence over just based on her powers, because Scarlet Witch always was able to alter sort of the minds of people. When we talk about Scarlet Witch, we always talk about how she's so powerful that she doesn't even really comprehend how powerful she is. So whether she's aware or not, even in these older 90s comics, she doesn't seem to be entirely aware, which is insane, which is her weakness ultimately, and why Thanos defeats her in the Infinity Gauntlet series.
She even has ties to it in the cinematic universe,
which is what I was going to bring up.
Excellent. It all connects.
It is, and that's the thing, is the cinematic universe does such a good job of even though they might have switched the colors and even though they might have like tweaked things here and there, they're ultimately being completely true to the origins of these gems and where they come from. Like, yeah, okay, so Scarlet Witch isn't a mutant in the MCU, but she was created by the Mind Stone, which is interesting because her powers are altering perception and altering reality and altering the mind.
And now with the Mind Stone embedded in the Vision's forehead, that brought him to life, and
they've always had a connection.
They've always had a great dynamic, which has been they've
been like a power couple.
I love when superheroes are power couples.
Yeah, I know. I just was like, oh, I'm waiting for her to just be so happy about that. But you know, Scarlet Witch and Vision have always been so connected, and so to have the stone that she was made with land in the bring to life,
it brought him to life. Yeah. And now he's the keeper of it for how much longer we don't know. But
I'm also wondering if she's going to have any sort of influence in Infinity War over the Mind Stone, because that's something that she was able to do very slightly in the MCU, like in the comics.
Yeah. There's just infinite potential for all of these things. And so it's really cool to see that Marvel takes these stories seriously in the way that they want to present them. And of course, these things are going to change in color and size and shape and what dimension they end up in and who's holding on to them.
Kind of like that, because it's like we're treating them as characters, like we were talking about. Like they are characters, they do influence story, and they drive the entire universe. So where would fans go looking if they are trying to track the Infinity Stones across comic books? So I would start with Infinity Gauntlet. Then that's from Jim Starlin, drawn by George Perez and Ron Lim.
Ooh, all-star team.
It's gorgeous and smart and fun, and you definitely are going to want to check it out. I would first go with Infinity Gauntlet, and if you like it, you can move into Infinity War and Infinity Crusade, all by Jim Starlin.
All right. And if you're looking to keep track of the Infinity Stones now, make sure you watch all the Marvel movies. Please do that. I mean, that's such
and if you need to make a chart, you should just write down which one's in which place at each moment.
It's a fun game to keep track of them. But if you're looking for the comics right now, I mean, you're in a prime position to jump in. Infinity Countdown is just beginning. And what are they counting down to? Well, Marvel just announced that they are launching a summer event, Infinity Wars, in July. It is spinning out of the pages of Infinity Countdown. So we'll see where these stones end up. They're all in shuffling between hands right now. And Infinity Wars will be written by Jerry Duggan with art by Mike Deodato Jr. and Frank Martin on colors. Marvel hasn't given us a lot of information, but at C2E2, which is a Chicago convention, they will be revealing more details about this massive, apparently massive event. There seems to even be a new character on the cover.
That's awesome.
So that'll be in early April. So you guys, you're in a prime position for just seeing all the Infinity Stones
and including Avengers Infinity War hits theaters on April 27th. And the next issue, like Kitty was saying, of Infinity Countdown arrives in stores on April 18th. So that's the Infinity Stones then and now. Thank you guys for listening, and don't forget to let your geek side show. This has been Then and Now. For more ad-free pop culture news and content, visit geeksideshow.com. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to let your geek side show.